Although the movie MASH is during the Korean War, I categorize it in the genre Vietnam. In terms of authority, Vietnam is categorized as absolutely no authority. It's very corrupt, bad, and there is zero trust. Everyone does whatever they want to do. In terms of combat, there is no true enemy. It is extremely unclear what is going on during combat, who is fighting who, and why it is happening. In Vietnam genre movies, there is absolutely no purpose presented. In the movie MASH, authority is a joke. No one takes true charge, commanders fight lieutenants, everyone argues, and there's constant drinking and fooling around. Hawkeye is a perfect example of a very important figure who does not take anything very seriously. He's a chief of surgery, and he drinks excessively, fights with his fellow workers, commanding officers, and doctors. He also flirts with all the nurses and pulls pranks on everyone he knows. Another perfect example of the lack in authority is Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake. He puts friendship before his job, and he isn't much of an authority figure, because everything he says or does usually results in something bad. He also lacks the ability to control everyone, because everyone continues to be out of hand. Combat is very unclear. We never see true acts of violence with guns, bombs, or any weaponry, but what we do see is a result of the combat. The doctors in the movie MASH give us a very clear understanding of what level of violence is simply going on because of the type of surgery and goriness that they are performing. A major event that contributed to the making of the movie MASH was the Cuban Missile Crisis. The U.S. and Russia were enemies because Russia put nuclear missiles in Cuba due to the fact that they feared U.S. weapons in Turkey at the time. Russia put their missiles in Cuba as a form of self-defense. The U.S. feared the missiles in Cuba and felt like Russia was threatening them. Kennedy quickly decided to set up a naval blockade as a defensive tactic to prevent Russia from bringing more missiles into Cuba. In the end, Kennedy agreed to dismantle their weapons in Turkey if Russia agreed to dismantle their weapons in Cuba. It was very hard for the U.S. citizens to trust authority, especially after an extremely close encounter of a nuclear war. Another major event that led to the specific way that the movie MASH was made was the Democratic National Convention. The Democratic National Convention was held in Chicago, 1968. Many anti-war protesters who wanted peace and to cease fire in Vietnam were protesting in the streets of Chicago. As you can assume, the day was very chaotic, and the mayor at the time, Mayor Daley, wanted to keep everything under control. We soon learned that that was very unrealistic. We have to recognize that it was a riot and protesters are going to protest. Rather than handling the situation in a civil manner, Mayor Daley let it get out of control. He sent thousands of policemen to control everything, but rather than doing so, the policemen shot and killed many people as well as violently injured many. Mayor Daley did nothing to stop this. He was the one who essentially created it. The city of Chicago was in awe as to how their mayor let this happen. The political figure that everyone had turned against them. Trust was lost, and people viewed the political system very differently. One thing that is essential to notice is that the deaths in Vietnam War increased from the years 1961 to 1968. From 1965 to 1971, the deaths were in the thousands, from 2,000 to 16,000 casualties. In total, the Vietnam War resulted in 58,220 deaths. The events that occurred during the 1960s, like the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Democratic National Convention, and the increase in casualties in the Vietnam War, all contributed to the way the U.S. viewed authority and the way authority was portrayed. Those events were a direct influence on the way the movie MASH was made with a lack of authority, organization, and clarity.